balance? Like, what do you think is perfect, like a perfect
Like, I
balance
think,
for it?
like, I'm 100% like aware. I know when I went too far with things, like, and it's like shameful. It's like, really, Marina, like that was ridiculous. So like, for example, the Caitlyn thing, like when the play was over and everyone was like, that was obvious that my emotions of us losing and losing and losing, and then she's like low-key punking our team on top of it. Like, that was too far. Like, that was too much.
That right there is what accountability looks like when it comes 6 months too late. Marina Mabrey just admitted on camera that she went too far with that cheap shot on Caitlin Clark during the playoffs. But here's what makes this interesting. She's not apologizing because she realized it was wrong. She's apologizing because Indiana fans made her pay for it every single game after that moment. The question we need to answer is simple. Do we actually believe this is genuine remorse, or is this damage control from a player who's about to hit free agency and suddenly realize that being known as the person who blindsided the league's biggest star might not be great for her brand?
Caitlin Clark going for the ball, barely touches Marina Mabrey. Being the flopper and the flailer that Marina Mabrey is, she sells the contact, falls to the floor, and gets up ready to do something. So you know from this day forward, Marina Mabrey's been plotting to get back at Caitlin Clark. Oh yeah, folks, we don't forget.
Let's go back to the actual incident, because the details matter here. Connecticut versus Indiana in the playoffs. Mabrey gets traded mid-season from Dallas to Connecticut, so she's already facing her former teammates with something to prove. Caitlin Clark goes up for a rebound, barely makes contact with Mabrey, and Marina sells it like she got hit by a truck, falls to the floor, pops back up, ready to escalate the situation. That's September 25th, 2024. First playoff meeting between these two teams. And you can see it in Mabrey's body language right there. She's been waiting for an opportunity to respond physically. The whistle hadn't even finished blowing.
Watch when Caitlin Clark is trying to create some space. It looked like she just got hit in the eye there.
Ooh, and Marina Mabrey, I missed that one, Idona.
Oh, I missed that one too.
You guys missed that one? Oh, you guys are just dumb? Can I say that? Yeah, you guys are just dumb.
Watch when Caitlin Clark is trying to create some space. It looked like she just got hit in the eye there.
Ooh, and Marina Mabrey, I missed that one.
Now watch what happens next. Clark is moving off the ball, creating space on the perimeter, and she takes an elbow directly to the face. Announcers completely miss it in real time. Tina Charles is positioning for the same hit, but Mabrey beats her to it. Clark's grabbing her eye, clearly hurt, and the referees somehow don't see a 6-foot guard throw a forearm into the face of the player they're supposed to be protecting. This is where the pattern starts to become obvious. Because this isn't the first time Mabrey's had these kinds of moments with Clark. Earlier in the season, there's footage of Mabrey attempting what can only be described as a spinning backfist during a different game. The player on the receiving end that time, Asha Wilson, who cleanly blocks the attempt. So we're not talking about isolated incidents of emotional basketball. We're talking about a player who has a documented history of letting frustration turn into unnecessary contact.
Because you have a little bit of a pattern, Marina, you know what I mean? You have a little bit of a pattern doing these types of things. Before we get into the internet's reaction of this clip, particularly Marina Mabrey getting fried on the internet, do you guys remember this? Marina Mabrey trying to clock AB. Oh, indeed. What are we doing? Spinning back fist, Marina Mabrey. Boom. Hands up, perfectly clean by AB. Marina Mabrey tries to hit her with a spinning back fist. But enough with that.
Here's where Mabrey's explanation starts to fall apart. She claims the cheap shot happened because Connecticut was losing. They were getting punked by Indiana, and Clark was low-key pumping her team up. Let me translate that for you. Caitlin Clark was doing exactly what a franchise player is supposed to do, which is lead her team and celebrate success, and Mabrey decided the appropriate response was to shove a player in the back while she was walking away with an eye injury. The Indiana crowd booed Mabrey relentlessly for the rest of that game. And apparently, according to her own admission, that's when she started to realize maybe this wasn't the best decision. Not in the moment when she did it, not when she saw Clark holding her face, but when 15,000 fans let her know exactly what they thought of her actions.
Hey, LOL, she got poked in the eye, then shoved to the ground. Shit was wild. Don't fall for this, people. She has done this multiple times to Caitlin in the rookie season as well. I was losing, so I decided to body check their best player. That's kind of a crazy take. She's nuts. She knocked down a player who was blinded with her back turned with the whistle blown, and she doesn't think that was a flagrant 2. Nasty work.
The internet's response to this interview clip has been absolutely brutal, and frankly, Mabrey should have seen it coming. Fever fans have long memories, and they've been keeping receipts since day 1 of Clark's rookie season. One comment that perfectly summarizes the sentiment: she's only saying this because her name is a plague in Indiana right now. Another one cuts even deeper: you got poked in the eye and then shoved to the ground while your back was turned. That's not basketball, that's assault. And they're not wrong. The sequence of events matters here. Clark takes an elbow to the face. She's clearly compromised, the whistle has already blown to stop play, and Mabrey still decides to deliver a two-handed shove to her back. That's not a basketball play. That's not even a hard foul. That's targeted retaliation against a player who can't defend herself.
Me and the team. But then on the flip side, like when we were in Indiana and it was everyone's booing us, like it feels like shit. We end up losing by like 25, and it's like, Marina, that's your fault, buddy. Like,
damn, get it in back. No wonder why everybody hates Caitlin Clark. You find yourself on the floor with CC22. Yeah, you're most likely.
Now Mabrey tries to draw a distinction between what she did to Clark and a later incident at Unrivaled involving another player. She says the Unrivaled scuffle was perfect because it fueled her team without crossing the line, but the Clark incident was too far and shameful. But that comparison actually makes her look worse, not better, because it means she understands where the line is. She knows the difference between competitive intensity and unnecessary violence. She just chose to cross that line anyway when it came to Caitlin Clark. Why? The most logical explanation is the simplest one: jealousy. Clark came into the league with more attention, more endorsements, more media coverage than players who've been grinding for years. And when you're on the wrong end of a highlight reel getting cooked by a rookie, that frustration has to go somewhere.
Damn. And to keep it a buck, shout out to W360, CJ over there, making her return yesterday. And to keep it a buck, I think this is how Alyssa Thomas felt when she chokeslammed Angel Reese out the air, but the Freedom Writers stayed quiet because Alyssa Thomas is oh damn. Oh damn. Yeah. I believe this is all jealousy. They're all just jealous. And the only time to take out your frustration, the only time to take out your anger, the only time where your jealousy can turn into actual physicality is on the basketball court. And these ladies wasted no time doing that at all since Caitlin Clark joined the W.
Let's talk about the broader pattern here, because this isn't just about Marina Mabrey. This is about how the WNBA's old guard treated Caitlin Clark throughout her entire rookie season. Chennedy Carter delivers a blindside hip check before a playoff game. DeJounte Carrington pokes her in the eye and then likes social media posts celebrating it. Angel Reese sets moving screens that would make an NFL offensive lineman proud. And the league's response? Crickets. But the moment Clark so much as celebrates a three-pointer or shows any emotion, suddenly there's a problem. Suddenly she needs to respect the game and know her place. The double standard isn't subtle. It's not even hidden. It's broadcast in high definition every single game. One comment on Mabrey's interview nails it. The fact that she just basically admitted, yeah, I hit her because everyone was punking us and Caitlin Clark was embarrassing us, is wild. Because that's exactly what she said. She admitted the cheap shot was retaliation for losing, not for anything Clark did to her personally, just for losing to a better player.
The Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonners and the others players have been feeling, but the slows swear we're tripping. Oh yeah. Oh, Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna Bonner. Eesh. Real humans tried to act like she wasn't in the wrong just because they hate CC. Mind you, she's been a weirdo, but because she did that one thing, she's WNBA Twitter's messiah, and they ignore her strange-ass behavior. Someone's trying to clean up her image before free agency. I did watch Rhodes' video on this. You know, you never know what deals you're missing out on because you decide to act like a fool and cheap shot one of the game's biggest stars.
Here's what makes this entire situation so frustrating for Fever fans and Clark supporters. They were told for months that they were overreacting, that the physicality was just playoff basketball, that Clark needed to toughen up and stop complaining. Media members like Isaiah Thomas and Cheryl Swoops downplayed every single incident, acting like Fever fans were making something out of nothing. And now we have Marina Mabrey on camera admitting she went too far, admitting it was shameful, admitting her emotions about losing led her to cross the line, which means everyone who defended that play was either lying or willfully blind to what actually happened. The comment section is full of people pointing this out. Real humans tried to act like she wasn't in the wrong just because they hate CC. Another one. People defending that was wild. Like no way they were watching that clip and thought it was okay. These aren't casual fans. These are people who watched the play, saw the cheap shot, heard the excuses, and are now vindicated by Mabrey's own admission. So let's get into what this actually means going forward, because Mabrey's admission isn't happening in a vacuum. She's an unrestricted free agent after this season. She's going to be looking for a new contract, probably hoping for a bigger role and more money than she got in Connecticut. And suddenly, 6 months after the incident, she's doing interviews talking about how she crossed the line and feels shameful about it. The timing is suspicious, to put it mildly. Multiple comments pointed this out immediately. Someone's trying to clean up her image before free agency. And they're absolutely right to be skeptical. Because if Mabrey genuinely felt remorseful about the cheap shot, she had 6 months to say something. She could have addressed it after the playoff series ended. She could have mentioned it during the offseason. She could have brought it up before Unrivaled started. But she didn't. She waited until she's about to hit the market and needs teams to see her as something other than the player who blindsided Caitlin Clark. Here's the reality that Mabrey is probably just now understanding. There are consequences to being known as a dirty player in a league that's trying to grow its fan base. Caitlin Clark brought millions of new viewers to the WNBA. Those viewers aren't going anywhere. They're invested now, and they remember every single cheap shot, every unnecessary foul, every moment where their favorite player got targeted. When Mabrey hits free agency, every team is going to have to weigh her talent against the baggage she brings. Is she good enough to justify bringing in a player that half your potential fan base despises? Is she worth the negative press and the inevitable backlash when you play Indiana? Those are real questions that general managers are going to have to answer. And that's before we even get to the on-court implications. Indiana fans booed Mabrey so relentlessly after that cheap shot that Connecticut lost by 25 points. Her own admission. When we were in Indiana and everyone's booing us, it feels like shit. We ended up losing by 25. And it's like, Marina, that's your fault, buddy. She's right. It was her fault. She let her emotions override her basketball IQ, made herself the villain, and cost her team a winnable game. Now imagine being a team considering signing her. You're looking at a player who admits she lets frustration lead to unnecessary fouls, who has a history of retaliatory plays, and who generates so much negative attention that opposing crowds can boo her into ineffectiveness. That's not a player you build around. That's barely a player you want coming off your bench. But here's the deeper issue that nobody's really talking about. What Mabrey's admission reveals about the culture in the WNBA during Clark's rookie season. Because Mabrey wasn't acting alone. She wasn't some rogue player going off script. She was part of a larger pattern of veterans who felt threatened by Clark's success and decided to express that through physical intimidation. Think about the sequence of events. Chennedy Carter's hip check in June. DeJounte Carrington's eye poke in August. Mabrey's cheap shot in September. These aren't isolated incidents. These are escalating acts of aggression against the same player, and the league did virtually nothing to stop it. No suspensions, no fines significant enough to matter, just a bunch of technical fouls and flagrant ones that players shrugged off like parking tickets. And the message that's sent to Fever fans was crystal clear. The league doesn't actually care about protecting its biggest star. They care about not alienating the veterans who've been around for years. They care about maintaining the status quo, where rookies, even generational talents, are expected to pay their dues by absorbing unnecessary punishment. That's why Mabrey's admission rings hollow for so many people. It's not that she's wrong about crossing the line. She absolutely did, but the apology feels performative, because nothing about the underlying dynamic has changed. If Caitlin Clark enters next season and starts cooking people again, do we really believe the cheap shots are going to stop? Do we honestly think Marina Mabrey's interview is going to make Chennedy Carter or DeJounte Carrington suddenly decide to play clean? Of course not, because the culture that enabled those cheap shots in the first place is still intact. The referees who missed obvious fouls are still officiating games. The media members who downplayed the incidents are still covering the league. The league office that refused to hand out meaningful discipline is still in charge. What's changed is that Fever fans are now a permanent fixture in the WNBA landscape. They're not going away. They're not losing interest. They're going to show up to every game, watch every broadcast, and hold grudges against every player who took a cheap shot at their franchise cornerstone. And that's what Mabrey is really responding to. Not some moral awakening about player safety, just the cold realization that being on the wrong side of the league's biggest fan base is bad for business. The comment that keeps coming up in these discussions is perfect. Fever fans are like elephants. They never forget. And it's true. Mabrey can do 100 interviews talking about how shameful her actions were, and Fever fans are still going to boo her every single time she touches the ball in Indianapolis, because they remember the moment. They remember Clark holding her eye. They remember the cheap shot to her back. And they remember all the people who defended it. That's the real consequence here. Not some fine or suspension that Mabrey never received. The consequence is that she's permanently associated with one of the ugliest moments of Clark's rookie season. When people think about Marina Mabrey's career, that cheap shot is going to be one of the first things that comes to mind. Not her shooting ability, not her playmaking, just that moment where she let jealousy and frustration override her judgment and shoved the league's biggest star in the back. So is this admission genuine? Does Mabrey actually feel remorseful? Maybe. It's possible she's had time to reflect and genuinely regrets her actions. But the timing suggests something else entirely. This feels like reputation management. This feels like a player who's about to hit free agency and realize that being known as a dirty player might cost her money. And you know what? Good. Actions should have consequences. If Mabrey loses out on contract offers because teams don't want to deal with the baggage, that's exactly how it should work. If she has to play in hostile environments for the rest of her career because fans remember what she did, that's the price of letting your emotions control your actions on the court. The broader question is whether the WNBA has learned anything from this situation, because Clark's rookie season exposed some ugly truths about how the league treats its stars. The physical targeting was obvious, the media's complicity in downplaying it was shameful, and the league's failure to protect its most marketable player was borderline negligent. If the WNBA wants to continue growing, if they want to capitalize on the momentum that Clark brought to the league, they need to make it clear that cheap shots won't be tolerated. Not with technical fouls, not with meaningless flagrants, with actual suspensions, with fines that hurt, with consequences that make players think twice before letting frustration turn into violence. Because here's the thing, Caitlin Clark is going to keep dominating. She's going to keep breaking records, selling out arenas, and generating highlight reels. And if the league doesn't protect her, if they keep allowing veterans to take cheap shots because they're frustrated about getting cooked, eventually something bad is going to happen. Eventually one of these unnecessary fouls is going to result in a serious injury. And when that happens, the league will have no one to blame but themselves. So Marina Mabrey's admission is a start. It's acknowledgement that the cheap shot crossed the line. But it's not enough. Not even close. What we need is a fundamental shift in how the WNBA handles player safety and how they respond when stars get targeted. We need referees who actually call flagrant fouls in real time instead of missing them completely. We need a league office willing to hand out suspensions that actually matter. And we need a media environment that doesn't immediately rush to defend every cheap shot as just playoff basketball. Until those things change, Mabrey's admission is just words. Performative accountability from a player trying to salvage her reputation before free agency, and Fever fans aren't buying it. They remember the moment. They remember the injury. They remember everyone who defended it. And they're going to make sure Marina Mabrey remembers it too, every single time she steps on the court in Indianapolis for the rest of her career. So where does this leave us? With a player who admitted she crossed the line, but only after facing consequences for 6 months. With a fan base that's never going to forget what happened. And with a league that still hasn't figured out how to protect its biggest stars from unnecessary violence, disguised as physical basketball, that's not progress. That's just damage control. And it's not nearly enough.